Good afternoon, all you lovely people, and welcome once again to the official topic talk. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday afternoon, and I'm going to continue where I left off with part 7 um, of the inquiry into the child sexual exploitation report in Telford. I think where we left off, we were just touching on Rotherham. The Rotherham. I think where we left off, we were just touching on the Rotherham abuse. So, following the conviction of 5 men in 2012, Rotherham Council commissioned an independent inquiry led by Professor Alex J. OBE, the J Inquiry, which reported in August 2014. The J Inquiry found that approximately 1,400 girls had been exploited in Rotherham over a 6-year period, and that the authorities in South Yorkshire had been aware of the abuse dating back many years but had failed to address it. The J Inquiry report covered the period of 1997 to 2013. As a result of the failures identified by the J Inquiry, the government commissioned an independent inspection of Rotherham Council to be carried out by Louise Casey in 2014. And in 2015, Miss Casey produced a report entitled Reflections on Child Sexual Exploitation, often referred to as the Casey Report. In 2015, the government published its official response to the J Report, entitled Tackling Sexual Exploitation, where a number of commitments were made to ensure that scandals such as Rochdale and Rotherham should not be allowed to happen again. I'm now going to touch on the Rochdale Operation Span. Operation Span was launched by Greater Manchester Police in 2010, 2 years after Operation Central was begun by South Yorkshire Police in Rotherham. As in Rotherham, the authorities in Rochdale had begun to identify children at risk of sexual exploitation, with links being made to takeaways and taxi companies. You would remember in part 7 we were touching on taxi companies and recommendations that was put forward from the Telford inquiry towards taxi companies. Charges were brought against a number of perpetrators in June 2011, leading to the conviction of 9 men in 2012, 2 of whom it was found had been arrested 4 years earlier in 2008 for the rape of a 13-year-old girl, but were not prosecuted at the time because the Crown Prosecution Service ruled that the victim was not credible. The story of that young girl and the abuse and exploitation of her friends was later televised in the BBC drama series 3 Girls, which aired in 2017. Oxford, Operation Bullfinch. Again, at a similar time, Operation Bullfinch was launched in May 2011 by Thames Valley Police and Oxfordshire County Council, representing a joint investigation into allegations of child sexual exploitation and serious sexual offences against children across Oxfordshire during the 1990s and early 2000s. The investigation led initially to the prosecution of 7 men who were convicted in 2013 of a total of 59 offences between them, including for rape, trafficking, and of facilitating prostitution. However, 5 further trials have followed, since 2013, and the last taking place in February 2020, resulting in Operation Bullfinch securing the conviction of a total of 21 offenders in its decade-long investigation into child sexual exploitation in the county. A serious case review was conducted in 2015, and a report produced by the independent chair of the Oxfordshire Safeguarding Children's Board, Maggie Blythe, estimated that up to 373 children in the county may have been targeted by an organisation network of abusers. The review looked at the handling of concerns by the authorities between 2005 and 2012 and found that there was a culture within those in power that failed to recognise signs of grooming, and instead victims were disbelieved and assumed to be precarious and difficult. It is noted a pessimism about the prospects of the successful prosecution of offenders, as victims were alleged to have withdrawn their support or changed their stories. Bristol, Operation Brook. The child exploitation operation continued over the following year. Everywhere in the country, Avon and Somerset Police launched Operation Brook in May 2013, following the recovery of a vulnerable 14-year-old girl from an address in Bristol, who went on to disclose that offences had taken place at those premises and others, involving multiple victims and offenders. A series of trials followed, resulting in the conviction of 13 men for a total of 42 offences, including rape, sexual activity with a child, trafficking, and facilitating child prostitution. Like Operation Bullfinch, a SCR followed, and the Brook report, published in 2016, focused on the multi-agency approach to take to child sexual exploitation and considered whether or not this was effective in identifying and protecting children at risk of exploitation. The national response. In light of the number of child sexual exploitation operations and prosecutions, the House of Commons Home Affairs Committee released a report into child sexual exploitation and the response to localised grooming in June 2013, which found that both Rochdale and Rotherham councils were inexcusably slow to realise that the widespread organised sexual abuse of children, many of them in the care of the local authority, was taking place on their doorstep. There have been a number of actions taken on a national basis since then to tackle child sexual exploitation. For example, in April 2015, the Home Office provided police transformational funding to Chief Constable Simon Bailey, the National Police Chiefs Council, led for child protection abuse investigation, and the funding was used to appoint a network of 10 regional child sexual exploitation analysis and 10 coordinators within regional organised crime units in England and Wales. In 2017, the government also issued non-statutory guidance aimed at practitioners, local leaders, and decision makers who work with children and families to support them in identifying child sexual exploitation and taking appropriate action in response. And in 2019, the Home Office published a Child Exploitation Disruption Toolkit to help frontline staff and safeguarding partners understand their legislative powers and use best practice to disrupt the sexual and criminal exploitation of children. What the above history and background show is that while there has been an increased understanding of child sexual exploitation if steps are being taken to tackle it. The issue of child sexual exploitation is not a recent one, whether in Telford or across the country as a whole. Public awareness of child sexual exploitation in Telford and calls for an independent inquiry. So basically, people, I mean, it's widespread. You know, and it's not just a thing that's in one area. I mean, it's up and down the country. Child sexual exploitation first hit the news in Telford in 2012, the same year as the convictions in Rotherham and Rochdale, when during the course of 2011 and 2012, 8 men in Telford were convicted of child sexual exploitation related offences after the completion of a 4-year-long investigation into exploitation and trafficking of children. Led by West Mercia Police, this investigation was known as Operation Chalice. It has become well known to many across the Telford community. In 2013, Telford again made national headlines when the Channel 4 documentary entitled The Hunt for Britain's Sex Gangs was aired. The programme tackled the work of the Chalice team between 2010 and the conclusion of the trials in 2012, and followed an earlier Dispatches documentary called Britain's Sex Gangs, was aired in 2011, covering the UK-wide issue of young girls being groomed for sexual exploitation. Following Operation Chalice, a number of reports were commissioned by the Council and West Mercia Police, which consisted learnings from the police investigation and the multi-agency response to child sexual exploitation. This including the Council's own scrutiny review of multi-agency working against child sexual exploitation, published in May 2016, which acknowledged that despite the success of Operation Chalice, it is clear that child sexual exploitation is still taking place in Telford and Wrekin, and that there were particularly compelling eyewitness accounts of predatory behaviour going on in the nighttime economy, which suggested that a new generation of post-Operation Chalice perpetrators is growing up in Telford. I addressed the various reports and reviews undertaken during this period later in this report. Suffice to say that Chalice signified a pivotal moment in acknowledging the scale of child sexual exploitation in Telford. 2016 press reports. It was, however, some years after the Chalice trials in the late summer of 2016 when 2 press reports appeared in the Sunday Mirror likening Telford to Rotherham and alleging that the authorities had failed to act on concerns raised by the Telford Street pastors after Operation Chalice, that young girls were being groomed at under 18s discos in the town. The reports made reference to Home Office statistics obtained that showed Telford had the highest child sexual crime rate in the country, with 15.1 crimes reported per 100,000 in the year to September 2015. The Sunday Mirror journalists went on to spend considerable time engaging with victims and survivors in Telford, along with the MP for Telford, Lucy Allen. They began the campaign for a public inquiry. In September 2016, during the Prime Minister's questions, Lucy Allen called for a government-led public inquiry after an abuse victim told her that many of the worst offenders had not been prosecuted and still lived in the area. The then Prime Minister Theresa May said in response, "My honourable friend has just shown the cross-party concern that there is on the issue of child abuse and child sexual exploitation. It is absolutely right, as she says, that we are able to look into the abuse and crimes in the past. We will need to learn important lessons from that as to why institutions that were supposed to protect children failed to do so. It is for the authorities in Telford to look specifically at how they wish to address those issues in Telford, but I am sure that my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, has heard my honourable friend's comments and that she will want to take that up with her." The following week, on the 22nd of September 2016, a letter was sent by the leader of the council, Councillor Sean Davis, to Amber Root, the then Home Secretary, which said as follows: "We all welcome examinations of the effectiveness of our service and remain absolutely committed to tackling this issue, working alongside our national and local partners. We have had 3 inquiries into this issue in 2016 and understand that the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse chaired by Professor Alex J. OBE will assess the extent of which we have learnt lessons, implemented recommendations, and put in place effective strategies to prevent child sexual exploitation in the future. The 3 reviews this year include: Telford and Wrekin Council's children's services were reviewed by 7 independent Ofsted inspectors who were based at the council's Aidenbrook House headquarters for 4 weeks during June and July. The Telford and Wrekin Safeguarding Children Board has also been inspected by Ofsted and its work was rated as good. The council carried out an independent, all-party scrutiny review over a period of 18 months into how agencies work together to tackle child sexual exploitation. Given the recent findings of Ofsted and the fact that the government's own independent inquiry, chaired by Alex J., is already committed to looking at what happened here in Telford, we do not feel at this time that a further inquiry is necessary. Again, they're trying to brush it underneath the carpet, by saying that they didn't need a further inquiry, but, that inquiry did happen. We would like to be clear that we are under no illusion that there are significant concerns around the sexual exploitation of children in Telford. In towns and cities across the country, it is clear that some of the most abhorrent offences are being committed against some of our most vulnerable members of our society. We are not blind to this issue, though. We are not sticking our heads in the sand or sweeping it under the carpet. Instead, we have acknowledged the problem and committed ourselves to tackling actions to address it. We are keen to emphasise that investigating these crimes and protecting children from harm remains a top priority locally for all the partners concerned. We feel that good progress has been made in tackling this issue in Telford in recent years. That progress has been recognised by numerous official bodies and must be acknowledged. However, it is clear there is no complacency. To summarise, we remain committed to tackling this difficult issue in Telford and will support Professor J in any way that we can with the independent inquiry to child sexual abuse. It is vital that we all ensure that lessons have been learned and implemented and that effective strategies are in place across the country for preventing child sexual exploitation. This letter was countersigned by a number of members of the council, the then Chief Officer of Telford and Wrekin's Clinical Commissioning Group, David Evans, the Chair of Telford and Wrekin's Local Safeguarding Children's Board, Andrew Mason, and West Mercia Police and Crime Commissioner, John Campion. At that time, the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse has been established, and Professor Alex J. had very reluctantly taken over the role of chair, being a wide-ranging national inquiry into child sexual abuse commissioned by the government and established under the Inquiries Act 2005, which is still running today. One of IICSA's investigations is focused on institutional response to child sexual exploitation by organised networks, and the lines of inquiry for this particular investigation at the time confirmed that, building upon the body of work on child sexual exploitation following specific instances in places such as Devon and Cornwall, Oxford, Rochdale, Rotherham and Telford, this investigation will assess the extent to which a wide range of relevant authorities have learnt lessons, implemented recommendations, and put in place effective strategies to prevent child sexual exploitation in future. There was therefore a suggestion that the IICSA may look at child sexual exploitation in Telford as well as other areas, but the extent of those investigations was unclear. The letter from the council and others to Amber Rood was then subsequently followed up by a letter sent on behalf of the Conservative councillors at the council, which explained that they did not share the confidence expressed within the council's letter of 22nd of September and believed that there was a compelling and urgent case for an immediate and independent review into child sexual exploitation within the borough of Telford and Wrekin. Public and politic pressure continued, and on the 25th of October 2016, Lucy Allen reiterated her call for an independent review during a Westminster Hall debate. This was, however, resisted on the basis that IICSA already existed as a public inquiry with board terms of reference to consider child sexual exploitation. Continued calls for an inquiry. Some 18 months later, in March 2018, Telford made national headlines again when a series of press articles were published by the Mirror newspaper group reporting that up to 1,000 girls, some as young as 11, were groomed and sold for sex in the town. The expose was based on 18 months of investigative journalism, and the article said that the information gathered indicated that hundreds of young girls were raped, beaten, sold for sex, and some even killed over 40 years as authorities failed to act. The story was front page news, carrying the headlines, "Worst ever child abuse scandal exposed." The story again drew comparison with previous high profile investigations into child sexual exploitation in both Rochdale and Rotherham, but claimed that Telford was the most brutal and long-running of all. The evidence suggests that the estimates of prevalence and duration of child sexual exploitation in Telford produced by the Sunday Mirror, that up to 1,000 girls may have been subject to sexual exploitation in Telford over a 40-year period, were based on significant amount of research and freedom of information requests, which included interrogating West Mercia Police and council data. The data collated sought to identify the number of child sexual exploitation investigations and resultant prosecutions over that period, as well as the number of referrals to the council's child abuse through exploitation team by the Family Connect service between 2013 and 2016. Other data relied on included but was not limited to, data set out in the Home Office report entitled Telford and Regan Child Exploitation, 1st of April 2012 to 21st of March 2018, and data published by the Home Office in 2016, which indicated that for the period between September 2014 and September 2015, Telford and Regan recorded 256 child sex crimes, which equated to the highest rate of recorded child sexual abuse crimes reported to police per head of the population at a rate of 15.1 per 100,000 residents. I deal with the questions of prevalence and extent of child sexual exploitation in Telford as an individual limb of this inquiry's terms of reference in greater detail. In Chapter 2, Nature, Patterns and Prevalence of Child Sexual Exploitation in Telford, but it is important to note that it was against the backdrop of these reports that calls for an independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Telford gained momentum. Following the March 2018 exposed by the Sunday Mirror, public pressure continued to mount with ongoing campaigns by a number of survivors for an independent inquiry focused on child sexual exploitation in Telford. On March the 12th, 2018, the council wrote to Professor J, chair of IICSA, indicating its belief that an investigation into Telford child sexual exploitation was best carried out by IICSA within its border remit. Then on 13th of March 2018, the council asked the Home Office to begin an independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Telford and repeated this request again on the 19th of March 2018. On the 26th of March 2018, the council received confirmation from IICSA that its Truth project would be coming to Telford later in May and June 2018. As part of the inquiry's work, IICSA's Truth project was launched as a listening exercise designed to give people a chance, tell their stories and have their voice heard. But it was not a formal evidence gathering process. On the 28th of March 2018, IICSA clarified its position in relation to Telford in a statement on its website. We have reviewed the reports and other papers sent to us by Telford and Regan Council. They show the council is taking steps to address child sexual exploitation in our investigation into child sexual exploitation by organised networks. We are currently looking at documents gathered from institutions within a number of different local authority areas. We will consider whether we need to further information from Telford and Regan Council as we plan for the next phase. Of this investigation. On the 3rd of April 2018, the Home Office Deputy Director Safeguarding Unit responded to the Council's request for an independent, government-commissioned inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Telford. The response said that IICSA already had 13 ongoing separate investigations, including one which was looking at the institutional response to the sexual exploitation of children by organised networks. And therefore, it was not appropriate to establish a second statutory inquiry to look at issues which were already within the scope of the existing national inquiry. The Deputy Director went on to say that it was for IICSA to decide how to take this forward without interference from government. During the inquiry's work, there has been contact with IICSA and specific the team running the investigation into child sexual exploitation by organised networks. Given the potential for victims and survivors to decide to engage with both IICSA and the inquiry, it was important that lines of communication were established with IICSA to ensure that any crossover between the two inquiries could be addressed at an early stage, and importantly, to reduce the impact on victims and survivors. The response from IICSA informed me that Telford would not be specified as one of its case studies, and therefore IICSA will not anticipate there being any crossover between the two inquiries. There was also an additional complexity in relation to legal protections offered by the General Data Protection Regulations and the privacy policies inquiries are required to have in place. Evidence provided by witness to IICSA and part of its Truth Project could not be obtained by this inquiry for the purpose of my work. This inevitably meant that for witnesses who decided to engage with the IICSA Truth Project and this inquiry, there would need to be a degree of duplication of the evidence they gave. Witnesses unfortunately had to provide evidence afresh of this inquiry, unless they chose to obtain a copy of the information they had provided to the Truth Project themselves and share this with me. Hope you guys are doing well. On this lovely Thursday afternoon. Just gonna have myself a little break. So what do you reckon, people? This report, it's highlighting all the needs for recommendations so that they can find signs earlier. In the previous part 7, they were recommending that taxi drivers took courses so they can see the signs of any young children that are being abused, and they can earn a certificate for their taxi licensing within the Telford and Wrekin area. Not sure how many actually took up on that offer, as it wasn't stated that it was compulsory, which I believe, considering those perpetrators as taxi drivers, there should be tougher laws, on people wanting to get their taxi licenses in Telford. There should be courses for them to go on so that they can see the signs, of any young children that are being abused, and they can share that information with the police, or whichever authority that they need to approach, for the survivors to get the help that they require. But when you've got somebody in the place of trust, i.e. a taxi driver, you would imagine it's a trusted job, really, because you're taking people to and from places, so they need to be vetted. I mean, back then, the rules were different, taxi drivers, it was a lot easier for them 20 years ago to get a taxi license than what it is now, because they've got to go through rigorous checks. Rigorous background checks, especially in Telford. I mean, there was numerous complaints against a certain taxi firm here in Telford. That taxi drivers were escorting people where they're supposed to be taking them directly home, but they decide to take a divert, and swap taxis and get the customer to go into a different taxi. And so rightfully so, the recommendations for the child sexual exploitation in the Telford area towards taxi drivers, a lot of recommendations were put in, not only to the owners of these taxi companies in Telford, but also to the drivers. A taxi company in Telford had to change its name 3 times because of 2 convictions coming of taxi drivers that abused young children, and also there was allegations of great warso towards a couple of taxi drivers in Telford. Danny Jones, Hopes Police. Good afternoon, mate. Hope you're doing well, sir. Just reading part 8 of the child sexual exploitation report into the abuse of young girls in Telford. So I thought I'd just recap with people, what was said in part 7. While I have a quick fag break, and then I'll continue with the report. Can I come on panel at some time, as I'm from Telford and there is few things I don't think you realise? Well, jump on now if you want. The links out there if you wanna jump on now. The link's in the chat. If you got 5 minutes spare now, you can jump on.
Hi, Steve. You all right?
You all right, buddy? How are you?
All right, mate. All good. All good.
Yeah, I'm just reading through because I've got the 5,000-page report, into the Telford inquiry. So I'm slowly over the next couple of months, get it read out there, just for awareness.
Yeah, this report was a couple of years ago, isn't it? This report you're reading out, I think.
Yeah. This was I think it came out not last year, the end towards the year before.
Yeah. There's a lot of mistakes in that report, shall I say? The new report will come out only early this year, called the Linden Report. That shows you all the failings and all the findings they come across in Telford, West Mercia, and the social services.
I mean, there was a lot of failures. I mean, I've read through this report, from page 1 to page 5,000.
Yeah.
And it does highlight, the failings from the different authorities down to the police, West Mercia Police, and the other authorities. But I'll have to try and get hold of that Linden one, and I
can send you that. Yeah,
as well.
You got an email on there, haven't you, somewhere? I've seen it. Where is it?
Yeah, it should be on the about page.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I'll send it then. I'll send you the Linden report. It's good.
I mean, I've read through it.
Only one quick
say again, buddy.
There's only one query. I looked at your channel last few days. I thought, oh, it's quite fair play. There's a guy here reading out the Telford stuff. That's good. Good news. But then I noticed on your channel there's a few things on there you're promoting, and I'm thinking, oh, should be promoting that. Like for example, Sarah Wushton. Do you know her?
Who?
Sarah Wushton.
Sarah Ruston.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do know her and the other half.
Anthony. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you know what they've been up to the last couple of years then?
I've heard bits and bobs. I mean, I don't really support that side of it. I've done a couple of videos on my thoughts about Tommy Robinson and where I stand, as opposed to the work that he does is great, right? Because he's one man standing up, but it could have been promoted by somebody who wasn't counted as or looked as a racist. So that take that element away from take that element totally away from Tommy, and specifically just look at what he's put out there. I agree with that part, but the other half of the racism side now, push that to one side. And in a roundabout way, I've been involved in this. I've done a talk with Ronan as to why I'm airing this, like personally myself, is because my sister was given evidence for a victim.
All right.
And numerous perpetrators, let's say, came to my place of work at the time, tried to intimidate me to get my sister to drop the charges.
Yeah, that's standard.
So this is what's brought me, to want to keep it to the forefront. I don't want to work alongside anybody. I'm just one individual person, that just wants to get that message out there continuously. There's a lot of people that have said to me, oh, Tommy's covered that and blah blah blah. But I'm not anything to do with any of them.
Yeah, you're nothing to do with Tommy. You might be a supporter of him in some way, but you're not exactly working with him or for him or anything like that.
No. I'm totally just an individual soul. It's taken back to keep it to the forefront. I mean, I know there's been, if I say mud chucking, maybe that would be between the person that you mentioned and maybe one or two other individual people in Telford.
Yeah.
If I say mud chucking, that I know, maybe what you was about to say. Maybe.
Yeah, well, if I say looking Craig, Triplet, Isabel, Kevin, you know what I'm on about, don't you? You know exactly what I'm on about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
I've known about that. I mean, that's why I don't associate, myself with anything to do with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
do you know about Jonathan Miller? You know who he is?
About who?
Jonathan Miller.
Jonathan Miller.
Yeah, he was
the name rings a bell, but
okay, he was the director of Nagar. Well, do you know who Nagar is? In fact, do you know who that is?
Yeah, because that was something. Anthony was running, wasn't he?
Yeah, Sarah and Anthony were directors of that years ago. They didn't do the account.
Morning, Carl Waltz. How you doing, buddy?
But,
carry on, bro. Yeah.
So they were in charge of Nagar, and that's where Jonathan Miller was also a director of Nagar. Jonathan Miller is not a good bloke. He's a coke dealer, a domestic abuser. He beat Isabella. He's had the police. I live not far from Isabella, so I know exactly what goes on at Isabella's house. And John Miller's had the police at him a few times. And he's not a good person to be around. And yet, Sarah Wushton actually, by text form and verbal form, actually got Jonathan Miller and Isabella fixed up together, if you like, as a boyfriend and girlfriend type thing, saying he was a good bloke and he's a nice bloke and all this sort of shit. Now, Sarah could have got it wrong. I get that. She might not have known.
See the way I looked at that side of it. I mean, I thought, she was doing something good because, starting an organisation, for victims or survivors, say, her acting as like a third party, you know, to put them in contact with the right people that can really help them. You know, that's
Yeah,
what I see.
the
I mean,
principle behind.
I do know about all the mud chucking, you know, between these
Yeah,
people. You know, I stay clear of all the politics. You know,
yeah,
as I'm just an individual, you know, expressing and keeping the awareness to the forefront. But yeah, I have had knowledge, you know, of what's all going on in that circle. But you know, like I say, I'll stay away from that, you know, and
yeah.
continue on my path.
Have you ever heard of the Holly Project?
Holly, yeah, I've heard of that. Yes, yeah,
That's the one
because
that was actually,
there's a book out, isn't there, by that person?
yeah, Holly Archer wrote a book years ago about that one. Yeah, she's basically started up what Sarah wanted to do, and they ended up being competitors, and that sounds crazy, being in
So is there
competition.
actually an organisation, or you know,
Yeah,
so,
it's called the Holly Project. Yeah,
something in the Telford area that you can put out on this live now?
yeah,
You know,
the Holly Project is the
so
place to
if
go.
there's any survivors or anyone out there that feels the need, they need to talk to somebody, could you advise and, you know, put that forward today for
Yeah,
me?
easily. I can put the link actually in the chat as well. But the Holly Project in Telford is the one where the survivors actually use. It's one that's funded by Sainsbury's, Co-op, all the big corporations behind it got behind it. It's the real one to go to be honest with you. Nagar never really took off, never got funding properly. That's why it was always grifting for donations. And now Save Telford is exactly the same. I think Save Telford's actually closed. I think she's give up on it. I think.
Yeah,
What I did.
I think that I did have a look the other day, you know, at the link that I had, but he seems to have all shut down all over the place. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
what's come out. It's what's come out in the last sort of 6 months. What's come out about Sarah and Anthony and what they've been up to and what they've been doing, threatening people, all that sort of stuff, threatening victims, you know, threatening survivors. It's like fucking hell. You can't make this up. But the evidence is there. I only work on evidence. I do, Steve. So when someone puts a claim
yeah,
to me, I
well,
want to see the evidence of it.
that's the same as me, you know. I'd only work on something that if I've done a bit of due diligence on and I believe it to be true, you know, I'll speak about that. Because sometimes when you put misinformation out there, you know, people attack you left, right, and centre. You know, you got
Yeah,
this wrong,
yeah.
you got that. You know, so I'm glad you've come on.
I've spoken out about it for the last since January, since Tommy come to January in Telford. I thought, hey, I live here. I better see what's going on. I've not. I was a big Tommy fan back in the day when he started highlighting all this. I was the same as most of the population. I think, well done, Tommy, brilliant. But since I don't know, since the Vapor Britain's kicked off, and I can see all the lies within it, I can see all the misinformation, the twisting of words, and all sorts. I'm thinking, why are you lying? Why are you using, for example, episode 1, Amy Toy, or they call her Nicole now, but her name's Amy Toy. She doesn't even live in Telford. Hasn't lived in Telford since the age of 17. She's not welcome in Telford at all because she's smeared, lied, had 18 investigations. The whole of the Willow operation, or Operation Willow, should I say, was all about her. The whole operation was about her. And no, at NFA, there was no evidence of nothing. There was absolutely nothing. Even her own family said she's lying. She's telling us lies. She's telling you lies. She just seems to be a liar. So
That's
she
where
might
I'm
well be
already.
a survivor, but it's because she's
Yeah,
lying. Then you think, well, how can you take anything true? The reason she was never put in court is because she can't stop lying.
yeah, I have been fed some information as regards to, you know, that and maybe some misdemeanors that person's got up to, or something in her past or whatever. Um, you know, so that's why I don't really touch on that, because I'm not knowledged enough, you
Enough,
know,
yeah.
to be
You
able
need the
to
evidence in
comment.
front of you. Yeah.
You know,
Well, I've got Operation Willow. I mean, I read that Operation Willow. It's only like 15 pages long, but I read all that, and that shows it completely in there that she was not right to be used as a survivor. Tommy should never have used that lady. She's a grifter. She's a scammer. She's a cheat. She's not one to be trustworthy. Now, that doesn't say she's not a survivor.
but putting that aside, I mean, if say people could look at that and say, oh, you know, people victim shaming in a, that's why I stay away, you
Yeah,
know, unless
I've had that, Steve. Man, since I've said this sort of stuff, I've had that chucked at me. You just, what is it? You a grooming gang supporter and all this sort of shit. I'm like, no, complete opposite. I just want the truth. Don't smear it with muck.
even at the start of all this, you know, this was one reason, you know, somebody had hacked into, I think, my Facebook, and you know, there was a post put on a certain Facebook page,
Right.
saying that I was victim shaming and I was working for the Pakistani grooming gangs in Telford.
Yeah. I've had the
You
same.
know,
So I know exactly what you mean about.
it took me 2 months to clear that one up. You know,
I'm still fighting it now. I'm still fighting that smear. I really am. It's crazy.
I mean, I managed to clear my name off of that within like 2 months because it was a hate campaign against me because towards the back end of last year, I was in support of somebody in the YouTube community, and they turned out to be having a heck of a lot of NFAs on their record to do with grapes,
Right.
and you know, so I got a lot of backlash from the YouTube community. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that know I supported that individual, but the moment I realised with all the evidence that suggested he was a total wrong and NONCE and a convicted sexual predator,
Yeah.
I've now spent the past 3 months, you know, chucking him underneath the bus in the best way possible that I can do, but without getting back involved in all the drama and everything that YouTube creates. I mean, which was another reason why I wanted to bring all this to the forefront, you know, to reassure people, you know, I'm not an individual that will support that behavior by anybody. You know, and I just want to keep the awareness, you know, like to the forefront. But I'm glad you've come on because when I finish doing this, any chance you could leave the links or stuff in the comment
I'll put it in the
section,
comments. Yeah, I'll put them in the comments of the video. Yeah, I will do. I'll put the Holly
you know,
project in there.
and I'll get all that information about the Holly organization out there. So, you know, I'm giving the correct information out there as opposed to putting the Nagra or the safe.
Yeah, because they've closed. They're not going to continue with it. So yeah, the only place now really in Telford, unless you obviously social services is your first port of call. 999 is obviously your first port of call. But if you don't want to speak to 999 because no trust in West Mercia, which I don't blame you, and no trust in social services, which I don't blame anyone for that either. It's a case of go to Holly Project then and go to, and them people there, that support will give you the proper support. They won't use West Mercia. They don't use West Midlands Social Services. They use, I think it's Stafford and that lot out of town, if you like. So it's completely independent, even more independent. So you get you get justice, if that's the best way to put it, really. You get justice, you'll get help, you'll get counselling, you'll get it all there.
It's not. It's like some of these victims. I mean, you see, I'm for one that the sentencing guidelines need to change because
I agree.
You got a perpetrator, say, right, and he commits these offences against these vulnerable children. Now, the problem, I think, you know, they should start getting life sentences because even though through their childhood they're going to be suffering, you know, it follows them into the adulthood as well. So
yeah,
it takes over their world because they're never the same. You know, once
it's a life changing. It's life changing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think the sentencing guidelines for these sort of crimes should be life because the victims and survivors are going through it for the rest of their life. So I feel that the perpetrators should have equal on the sentencing guidelines of life to make them know the victims live with it forever. And at the moment, these guys are getting like 8 years. They're out in 4 years.
Hey, yeah, there's someone who got 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You think, how the hell? 2 or 3 years for grooming and exploiting children. You're mad. How does that sentence even work? It should be double, triple that, you know, triple that at least. So I agree with you there. The sentencing is ridiculous. It really is.
I mean, a life for a life. As far as I'm concerned, you know, once a survivor's been through that harrowing time at the perpetrator's hands, he's with them for the rest of their life. You know, it's not something they overcome within 10 years. You know, so I'm a fond believer now that Lucy Allen needs to push forward, you know, to try and get sentencing guidelines changed for the Pacific child sexual exploitation perpetrators. You know, if they're going to destroy someone's life, they've got to expect life in prison, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree there. I mean, there's nothing that to me it's one of the worst crime. Well, it is to me it's the worst crime ever. Is to my eyes. I mean, a man can defend himself. A grown adult can defend themselves, but a kid, no, they can't defend themselves. It's disgusting. It's like that. That should be worse than any rape, any murder, or anything like that. That should be the highest ever. And that's to me, I'm the same as you. It should be the highest. I mean, I'm not one for taking a life. I'm not into, what do you call it, hanging people and stuff. I'm not really into that. But I do believe he should be put in prison for life, not 25 years, for life.
Yeah. For life, meaning life until their last breath, because that survivor, you know, like I say, they're going to live with every single second of what happened till they take their last breath in their life.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's bad enough just an individual paedophile doing whatever he's doing, the sicko, right? But when it comes to a gang and it's actually coerced and planned out and used as money and all that sort of stuff, you think these people should get the highest ever sentence what there is to man, and that's life, as far as I know. So that's what they should have. There should be no lenience whatsoever, in my opinion, not one. But that's just opinions. I mean, we can obviously lobby Lucy Allen to help out with that and push it through Parliament, hopefully. But that's all we can do as a democratic country, really. That's all we can do as democracy country. Is just ask the politicians to push it through.
I mean, even back in the day when Lucy Allen was, trying to push for certain things in Parliament, even she received
racist. Yeah,
she got death threat. I've got the recording on my channel. She received a death threat over the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I got intimidated on 2 occasions by 5 perpetrators to put pressure on. They were trying to put pressure on me, so I'll then put pressure on my sister, not to turn up at court, to give evidence. But back then, this was like 2017 going to 2018. They picked the wrong person because I was working back then for somebody who's pretty high up in the Indian community in Telford.
Right.
And we basically had a meeting in the back room.
Yeah.
And, I basically said to all 5 of them, you don't go near me. You don't go near my family. You don't go near my sister. You don't go near the victims. I said, if it happens, I said, I know each and every one of your families. I know where your mums are, your dads are. I said, I'll bring it to your door.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a few other stronger things said, but it's not for over here. But 4 weeks
that's
before,
natural, though, isn't it, Steve? That's natural because your sister, isn't it? Your natural reaction that is, and it's a good reaction as well.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, it's the extent that they went to do their homework on me, to know who I was, where I lived, who I basically hung about with, where I worked. They saw all of this information over a 3-month period, and then spent 2 weeks and ahhing whether to, come and tackle me,
do something about it. Yeah.
And I mean, when they did, I think they bit off more than what they could chew that particular day. But then they tried again 4 weeks before their trial. They put a little bit more pressure on me, and I basically
did they offer any money? Because that's the usual thing they do, is offer money. They didn't do that.
No, it was just pure threats.
Okay.
And I said,
a lot of the victims' families have been offered money to keep stum. Like, I know that's happened quite a lot in Telford. A lot of them have took it as well. So shockingly, a lot of them have took it.
But, I mean, this is how they work on their intimidating and threats, and you've got to take it serious though, because there was 3 deaths in Telford. By these perpetrators, as far as I'm concerned. Even though one was burnt in the house with her sister, and
that was Lucy.
Bless her soul.
Yeah.
Then you had the one that got knocked over in the car, and he tried to say it was an accident. That was Becky Watson.
Yeah.
And then you had the 3rd one that took her own life.
Yeah, she committed suicide. I forgot her name now, bless her. But
and as far as I'm concerned, that's murder, because the reason why she took her own life, in my eyes, is murder. you know,
Well, the reason
regardless.
I understand it, the reason she took her own life was to protect her own family. I think that's how it happened, because they threatened to burn, obviously,
Yeah, because
they threatened to do what they did to Lucy,
all
didn't
three of these threatened to go to the police and, you know, be
they?
the
Yeah,
whistleblowers on what was going on. And that's why I say when they came to me and threatened me, you know, I didn't take it lightly. I took it serious. But, you know,
yeah,
when they came 4 weeks before the trial, you know, things got taken to a different level. You know, and I put my nose to each and every one of the 5 of them, right? And I said, if you're guilty, the judge is going to find you guilty.
yeah. That's it. And
If
if
you're
you're not guilty,
innocent,
yeah,
I said,
exactly,
if
you'll be
you're
innocent.
innocent, the judge will find you innocent.
Yeah,
I said, but mark my words here today, right? I said, step foot towards any one of them. I said, they're protected. And I said, something bad will happen to all your families. And I said, it's not a threat. You know, I said, I'm big enough to do it, and I'm big enough to do it on my own. Well, when they all went to court, they each ended up getting between 8 and 9 years, and one of them got off on an appeal.
typical.
And then he had to fuck off. He had to leave the country basically, and, you know, go back to Pakistan.
I don't
Because
know any grooming people in Telford, or groomers, should I say, in Telford, that have been locked up and come back to Telford. None of them have, as far as I know. They're not welcome. They wouldn't be welcome here at all.
there's still one. There's still one or two living up there in Wellington at the moment, and their stipulation is when they come out, they were supposed to have got deported, and 5 years later, you know, they're still walking around the same town,
Telford,
the same
right.
place. But
I don't know them ones, I must admit.
but the better thing, I think, the communities come together up there in Wellington, because from what I've seen, I mean, I've got friends within the Pakistani community and the Indian community up there, and you know, that's why I was so vocal, you know, towards these 5, because I knew, you know, nothing's going to happen to me or my family, you know, I knew, but there's always that chance.
Yeah.
They look at it now that, you know, they're coming together to out, you know, they don't want that destroying the community in Wellington. All right, there might be 1 or 2, you know, that might be still lingering with their thoughts, you know, and they would accept them back. But I think what I've found as a whole, you know, they don't want them sort of people in their community. I know there's still maybe a handful or so that haven't been prosecuted, and, you know, they're still walking around Wellington free. I mean, but
yeah, there's probably some that are walking around Telford that got off with it. Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Or they haven't even been brought to justice. I mean, there's one that I know personally, and, you know, I've sent him messages. He knows how I feel, and it so happened to be one where he got took in and got NFA'd. Now, my anger was, there was DNA evidence of a feces of a baby.
Yeah.
And the girl was 14. And how can you get an NFA in the eyes of the police for DNA evidence? DNA evidence is the best you can have to secure a conviction. Corruption in the police force is the only thing that I can say.
Well, I think the law needs changing as well, because as from the age of 13, you actually need the girl to actually say, yes, I was raped, abused, groomed, whatever they want to say at the time, whatever happened to them. They need to say it. If they just say, no, nothing's happened to me, I'm happy, then there's police and social services, sadly, in this country, can't do it, because it's like a kidnapping charge, because the girl or the kid, if you like, who's been given an adult age from 13 onwards, according to the courts, they like allow them to sort of choose if they're allowed to give consent or not, even though they shouldn't be allowed to at that age. It's like, to me, it's a no-no, you know. It's like, no, what the fuck? Just because she's not going to prosecute, that doesn't mean nothing to me. You should still prosecute, but they don't, because she won't prosecute. They don't. And that's wrong. That's, to me, that's totally wrong.
See, and the other things that have angered me, I mean, for all this time, it's the authorities. You know, you get somebody 14 turning up at the doctor's wanting the morning after pill. Yeah. Why didn't that doctor inform
The
you know, the
parents, or at
police
least,
or
yeah.
authorities,
Yeah.
why was 14-year-old girls allowed to have abortions without questions being asked?
Well, there's a lot of
Um,
14-year-old girls will have sexual intercourse with 14-year-old dads. You know what I mean? So it's that's one reason to why the doctor won't report everything that comes in, because she could have a boyfriend that's the same age, and that's happened. They made a mistake, didn't use contraceptive, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I get that. Well, the doctor's not going to report that one,
and then
but he's
yeah,
not even asking questions.
and then the third one was the police. I do believe this to be true. I've read it in reports. The police were calling them prostitutes at the age of 14. Now the law says, right, you can't have sexual intercourse with anyone under the age of 16. So then how can the police substantiate the fact that the law's been broken and call her a prostitute? I mean, that's just disgusting.
It's disgusting. It is. But when you hear the
Unprofessional.
victims saying that I'm fine, I want to be here, I like it here, he's not touched me, and you hear the victim. I've heard victims, and I know they're victims. I know they are, and they're still telling people that no, I'm happy. I want to be in a relationship. I like the man. I love him. And all that sort of stuff. And you think, God, you're groomed. You're that brainwashed. You don't understand. All you've got to say is, I don't consent to this. What he's done to me is wrong. That's all you got to say, and that's it. He's locked up. But you won't. And I think you're that scared, that brainwashed, that through fear. I don't know what it is. It could be all three of them. But because they won't, and the police then they can't do it. And they think, well, until she comes forward and says, yes, I have been raped, groomed, whatever, then they can do something about it. But a lot of them in this Telford they will not come forward and say it. They're scared, fear, don't want it public. I don't know what reason. I'm not been a survivor myself, so I can't even picture being in that situation. I really can't. But all I can do is assume and think, well, is that the reasons why they won't come forward? Is that the reasons they won't tell the police? Why do they defend this man all the time when he's grooming her? Why do they defend the taxi ranks and defend everything what's gone on in their life? They won't come out and say it. What is it? But then in my eyes, I think, well, you know what? We shouldn't need her consent. She's 14. We shouldn't need that. Social services.
The law clearly states
Exactly.
you can't make a decision under the age of 16. So why weren't the police enforcing that law? I know sometimes with crimes the police can automatically still charge people. So back then, why wasn't the police prepared to protect our children? They were saying it was for fear of being called racist. I mean, that's what was written.
I get that, because there was a few police officers in Mallinsgate that lost their job through basically using the P word where they shouldn't have used, because it was a racist, derogative term, and they did get sacked for it. But they weren't getting sacked for being racist towards grooming people. They were just being racist because of their race, and that was the wrong thing to say. That's why they got sacked. But that's been took out. It's been took out of context. People are saying, "Oh, the police weren't allowed to say it because of the fear of the job and stuff." And I know that's not really. If they said it in the proper terms, they wouldn't get sacked. It's only the fact they said it in a racist, derogative way that they got sacked. If they had said, "Oh, you've got a problem here with an Asian man," that's not racist, and there wouldn't have been a problem. But they didn't. They used derogative terms, which is like, well, that's why you got sacked. But a lot of people have jumped on that and say, well, the police, was too scared to sort of say these things. I'm like, well, they were, but nowadays they're not. Nowadays they will just get a bollocking for it, if you like, a verbal or whatever, a written warning or something, but they won't get immediately sacked because it's not as bad as it was years ago. They're a lot more open now to be able to talk about it, to be able to discuss it.
See, what I'd like to see is from the findings, what recommendations have been carried out and how they would go about it differently, and what lessons that all these authorities have learned. If you get a chance, hit me up on Facebook, Steve Clark.
Steve Clark, will do. Okay.
And I could probably get some information across, like, from you, as regards to this Holly organisation. Can you tell me more about that?
The Holly Project, I can tell you loads about the Holly Project. In fact,
I mean,
can we share screen?
This is what people need to know, because I didn't know about that, you see. So anything and everything you can tell me, to do with the Holly organisation, because there'll be people watching, and, if they're scared to go to the police and these authorities, this is news to me. There is an organisation which Danny Jones is about to explain to you guys.
I'm going to share screen if I can. If I can do that on your panel, should be able to. Let's get rid of that. Yes, if you
Add to screen.
Something. Can you see that?
I think it's just loading now. Does that mean it's loading?
Now this is the Holly project. The whole mail.
I don't know. Is it up on the screen?
This is the people you need to go and see.
Ah, there we are.
Not.
So I put it on as a whole screen.
Yeah, it's on the screen. I think it's on the screen. Facebook.
Put my screen to full.
Sorry, on YouTube.
Oh, the Holly project.
Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it's on YouTube now. Yeah.
Yep, Holly
so
project.
Basically, that's the Holly project. It's completely funded. It was funded by Wrekin Telford Council, YMCA, Co-op, Sainsbury's, and a few other big brands. We're funding all this. But what I like about the Holly project is you can see clearly how to contact them, how to get in touch with them. hollypod.co.uk. The phone's there, 01952 947 831 if you want help at all. But contact these people is my best advice to anyone in Telford, or even not even in Telford, to be honest. They'll take anyone across the country. If someone in Rotherham isn't happy with people in Rotherham, they can go to the Holly project and they will get support and help. They really will. And that's the bit what annoys me at the moment with wants. And this is the really where you should be going, to be honest, at the moment anyway. It's the only thing Telford's really got behind it is this. So yeah, you can obviously.
Well, what I'll do, I'll remove that video.
See that? I'll drop the links in the comments when they can go straight there. So that's really, that's really neat.
What I'll do, I'll remove that video.
Save, not
I'll remove that video on save, and at some point during this, I mean, I had a death in my family towards the back end of last week, and I'm doing all of this also, to keep my mind off of that. The funeral's coming up in London. When I'll be back by the 21st of December, so either between now and then, I'll do a full video on that Holly project. I'll have a look through it all, and I'll probably get you back on and we'll have a proper talk about that.
About it. Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I live in Telford. I've been living here for 33 years, I think it is now. So I've seen it all go on.
Are you on Facebook?
I am. Yeah, I'm Danny Jones, Hoax Police on Facebook. Just hit me up. Just type in Hoax Police probably on Facebook. Probably the easiest thing, because I think there's quite a few Danny Joneses. Unless you put it as one word, Danny Jones, Hoax Police, it'll probably come up then. But I can drop you the link in the comments as well for that.
One.
Yeah. My Facebook up, actually. Where is it? Where's my Facebook on? Yeah, once you log into Facebook, you forget what your name is, don't you? Just log in. That's it. What's it called? Oh, it's just Danny Jones.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've said they can't find my Facebook, but
yeah, I've got your Facebook. I just found that. No problem. Right, let's click that. It's called Danny Jones DR. But if I drop it into the StreamYard here for you, I drop it in the back chat in the StreamYard, and then that's me.
Right, let's right, I'm going to add you now. Quickly while you're there, and I've got you. Then I can.
Yeah, I've got you here, I think. Is that right? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, cool. We can link up. We can discuss this, and we can go through it, because I've got a dog in the race, as I'm in Telford. You've got a dog in the race, as in your sister was abused. So we've both got interest.
Well, not abused. She was like a witness for
Oh, sorry. Well, there you go. A witness. Either way, she's involved in it some way, and that's what I'm trying to say, really.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll go through it. And all I want to do, I'm the hoax police, so I don't like hoaxes and scams and grifts and lies. That's me. So when I find a grift or a scam,
I've just sent you a friend request now.
Link, yeah, cool. So that's what I'm about. Really, just trying to expose grifting. I didn't purposely
I'm glad you come on. I'm glad you come on because you know, I can take that video down for save now, and you know, I can talk to you a bit more, have a look over the Hoddy project, and then you know, do a couple of videos about the Hoddy project.
Yeah.
I'll take that safe one down.
Well, you haven't got to take it down. I'm not saying take it down. I'm just saying that there's things.
I mean, there's no point if
there's no point now. It's closed.
Take it down, you know.
Yeah, it's closed now. I forgot that it actually closed down, hasn't it now? So, but yeah.
Yeah, but I was saying, all the politics behind, you know, what's going on with that. You know, I'm absolutely nothing to do with. I mean, I've tried speaking to Anthony before in the past, and you know, he's expressing what was going on, and you know, and that's as far as, you know, I went with that. You know, I don't like politics in stuff like this. You know, I'd rather be my own person on my own path and not be the follower of sheep. You know, and carry on my own path, sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're reading this out. I'm glad you're going through the report, to be honest with you. I've tuned in the last few days now, watching you read it all out, and that is good. It's good that someone's actually taking the interest in reading it out for once. When you get to that Linden report, which is the findings and the mistakes and the learning curve, hopefully the learning curve, you'll find that fascinating as well, because they do admit to a lot of their failings. They really do.
I mean, it's a shame that there was failings. I mean, it's a shame that, you know, they didn't think about protecting children over being called racist. I'd rather protect children and be called racist, even though I'm not, than to be in fear, you know, of you know, being called racist, because they're the police force. They're there to get paid to protect our children and us.
The problem is the police force is still a job. They still have money coming in every month. They still obviously get a mortgage and get bills and all come out, and they're a family. So they can't just afford to lose their job so quickly. I get that totally. And when they hear their partners in crime, if you like, partners in the police force, oh, he got sacked, what for? Being racist. And you're racist about what? Oh, the grooming problem in Wellington. You know, the groomers, so he was racist. So, of course, naturally, then you think, oh, shit, I better not rattle the cage then, because I'm going to get sacked as well. You know, I'm going to lose my job, and I had to explain that to the missus. So I get the fear the police had. I get that. But that fear should never have been there. You know what I mean? What they should have said, they were being racist. They weren't being derogative towards the groomers. They were just being racist. Facts, that's it. You can still, please don't stop highlighting the fact that grooming's going on. Please don't stop arresting people just because they're Muslim. Don't stop. But that wasn't put out. It was the fear tactics. The Malinsgate police station was like, oh my God, 3 or 4 people have been sacked because they're doing this grooming thing, and they got sacked for racism. So we're not going to touch it. That was the attitude for years, sadly, as that sounds. But that is the attitude. It's not so much today. It isn't, hopefully. Thank God it isn't today. But yeah, that was the actual attitude back in the day, was why they didn't come forward and say, yes, this is what's happening, because their mates got sacked.
And even down to the point they were saying that Wellington was a no-go area for the police. I mean, come on. You know,
nah, it's rubbish. It's rubbish.
You know, and then
there's one street, right, called Regency Street, and that's in Wellington. And to be honest, when you say it's a no-go,
Urban Gardens, Regent Street. I mean,
the Gardens one, that's another one. But yeah, them 2 roads alone, are sort of. They're not a no-go though. I've seen many a police go down there.
I mean, I've never feared walking down any one of them streets as a white person. I mean,
no, nor me. Nor me. I've walked down Regent Street many times just to get to Wellington. It's just quicker from where I live. I go to Wellington, walk through Regent Street, and I've had no fear. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. They don't like me. But I'd have had the impression they don't like me. But I must admit, it's all taxi drivers. It is all taxis down there. That's a fact. Whether that's because that's the market they chose to go and work in, I don't know. But most of them are taxi drivers. That is a fact. Like, it's not something you can deny. And you walk down Regent Street and you will see nothing but taxi after taxi after taxi, all parked up because they're working nights or whatever. But I've never seen any fights down there. I've never seen anyone go down there and be like, I've never seen EDL down there. I've never seen nothing like that happening. So it's not like people are portraying the way Telford is, and you think, unless you live here, you don't really know. You need to come and live here for a few years, then you'll see what's really going on. and it's not.
I mean, it was even a bit harder for me because I knew, like, some of the Khans, I knew some of the Husseins, and you know, I still speak to them. You know, I did recently.
I still speak to the owner of the Mint restaurant in Trench. Well, not called the Mint restaurant anymore; it's changed. But the owner who did have it back in 2014, 15, I think it was, something like that. I spoke to the owner about this and about the Royal Balti and all these places that's been named and all these places we've put on documentaries. And I spoke, and they're all like, we're unaware of this. This is a shock to us. We knew it was going on, in other things, but we thought that was finished. We thought they'd been locked up. People are doing time for this. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you're getting accused now of doing it. We're like, we haven't done anything like that in this restaurant. This is stupidness. It's just blaming people now without any evidence of whatsoever, just because.
See, that's what darkens Tommy. As to why I say I don't align myself, but I agree with what he's doing.
The principle behind it.
But like you just said there, it's like he's probably, say, 80% correct, maybe, but there's still that 20%, that I would disagree with. That's what tarnishes him, because people see that 20%, and then that's it. That's credibility, sometimes goes out the window so quick.
With Telford it has. Tommy's credibility, in my eyes anyway, with Telford, his credibility in my own eyes has gone out the window because of what he's been doing in Telford. I'm thinking, you're lying. I know you're lying, because I know these girls, I know these bleaks. I know you're lying, and I don't know why you're doing it. So the credibility for me has definitely gone down from Tommy, without doubt, completely gone down.
I'd rather read through these reports, because these substantiate more truth, fact, than Joe Blogs that's going to whisper in my ear. Whereas that report has been put out there, it's factual.
It's independent.
Exactly. I mean, that's the path that I would follow, as opposed to standing behind Tommy. I'd rather find the facts for myself. And go with what I agree with factual evidence wise. Is one reason why I weren't going to put a load of stuff out there that I didn't believe to be true. And by going through this report, now you've enlightened me to the up-to-date report. I'm inclined to go with these two reports on the findings, and because it's actually from authorities that have done all the due diligence and all of that fact finding. I'm just simply highlighting it and keeping it to the forefront. I could read a book from Tommy, I could read a book from somebody else, but it's not necessarily going to be 100% factual evident. And if I put something out there wrong, I'm going to get attacked on that, and then my credibility for trying to bring the awareness, is going to, kind of hit rock bottom, sort of thing.
I get that totally. It's a hard one. It's hard one to sort of talk about and sort of cover as a topic, because you do get sort of shoved into a road of where, you're just a grooming sympathizer or something. You think, no, you don't get it. I'm not a sympathizer. I want all these groomers totally locked up for life. I really do. But you can't get it done by telling lies. You've got to stick with the truth.
I mean, since I've come back with this fresh new channel, and basing the channel upon this subject, I mean, I've had a heck of a lot of support from even people that used to hate me. December last year, they were wanting to beat the living crap out of me. But they've noticed and realised, that the channel I've produced now is a subject that it's not everybody's cup of tea. It is a bit of a dark subject, to be honest with you, because some people would rather not hear it. But it's reality. It's out there. It's happening. So within the YouTube community, of all the people that used to hate me, I mean, they've now turned to support my channel and support what I'm doing, which to me is great.
Yeah, I get that. But it's because you're not being one-sided. You're just reading out what's there. That's it. You're not really making us. You're not sitting on the fence, but you're not really sitting on anyone's side either. You're just saying, look, this is the truth. I'm going to read it out for you. That's it. Deal with it yourselves. You know, that's all you're doing, and that's what more can you want from that? You're not biased in any way.
I mean, all like I was saying, politics and to do with and Anthony, and I know the struggles that are going on. I stay away from all the politics, and as long as I stay on my path that I'm on, to bring this awareness, that's all I can do really. Bring it to people's attention, and then it's up to them if they want to look through my videos and listen to what's in them videos. And to take my mind away from that, I started doing like interviews with people from the underworld that have reformed their character. So that kind of blends in onto my channel. I'm not one of these that would like to get the highlight of their underworld career. I wanting to highlight the questions that others haven't asked, which is how did they reform themselves, and how their characters are different now compared to like that. I've got a couple of BKB fighters on. I had Telford's first ever pro BKB fighter on.
Right.
I've had a couple of underworld characters from up like the Newcastle way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Brian Cockrell, the Taxman.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
I had his a sidekick of his, which was Terry Dicko.
Right.
I'm trying to get another character on. He's just waiting to see how my channel pans out and how I am as an individual. I've had Alex Carney on.
Right, yeah.
Which he's from up Scotland. He brought to the forefront about the paedophile racket up in Govan Hill.
Yeah.
Very good man he is. I mean, I've listened to, lots of these videos and the knowledge that he's got. And even if you can take a paragraph out of AC Coming Back to Life's channel, to help in your world, in your life, he's a really good guy. He is.
You can take anything from it. Even just a sentence of that guy, if it makes your life think, oh, you know what, I can do that, then great news. So I look at it.
Yeah. And there's one or two others I want to get on. I mean, there was another one, Britain's most violent prisoner. Right. He's coming on to do an interview next year with me.
Okay. That'd be
cool. So it was basically aimed at, Telford and the grooming gangs. But, I've decided, if I can get a couple of interviews chucked in, on the backside of it all. I think that'll do well for my channel. But ultimately it's for me to get awareness out there. I haven't even started looking at Rotherham and Rochdale and all them other areas, because it's going to take me 2 years to get through this sort of thing. I mean,
a lot of the Sheffield, Rotherham, Birmingham, all the rest of it, a lot of them are just mirrored, or Telford's mirrored from them. Who knows who started it first? Where it come from? I don't know. But a lot of the things you find in Telford will be the exact same things you find in Rotherham. They'll be exactly the same MO, exactly the same.
But what I haven't noticed any channels doing is like there isn't a channel dedicated to support, i.e. To put information on their channel to help survivors. I'm not going to call them victims because they're survivors.
No, they're survivors, yeah.
If they watch my video and they watch this one in particular, they're going to get to know about the Holly project. And this is something else. I could probably get you on a couple of more times, so I can push that out there about the Holly project.
Just hit me up on Facebook. If I'm not doing nothing, mate, you just hit me up on Facebook and I'll easily come onto your channel and talk about Telford or whatever, really. I'll talk about anything. If I know about it, I'll talk about it. If I don't know about it, then I'm the first person to say, I know nothing about that. I'm the wrong person to speak to, sort of.
No, I mean, like the Holly, everything about that. I mean, so you'll be a great aspect to come on.
Yeah.
For the silent people that can't come forward or can't get the courage, I mean, at least they're going to know where they can go to if they need to at any time.
Yeah, I mean, they might not find this live stream till a year's time. Who knows? But it's still there on YouTube. So then the Holly Project will hopefully still be going in a year's time. I think I have no reason to think it won't do because it's been going for 5 years now. So and it's got funding, so it'll still be there. So at least they'll see this stream and go, there you go. Let's go to the Holly Project. Let's try that. And that alone is a great thing you're doing. Absolutely great. You're putting it out there.
See, these are the sort of guests I'm itching to get on, but I simply didn't know about the Holly Project, and I'm glad that you came forward onto the chat, and that you're here now, because people need to know where they can go for confidentiality. If they haven't got enough confidence to go to the police, and that there are organisations like this, and
I mean, the Holly Project will do it for you. Yeah,
I didn't know about it, so there's going to be a lot of other people that don't know about it. But I'm glad that you've come on, because you can express and get that out there, via your channel, via my channel, show there is that support, given them circumstances, if they don't want to go to the police and so forth.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Holly Project as well, I'll say the good thing is it's a good thing anyway, but what I stood out for me is they're not selective in their groomers, whereas I think I found Sarah and Anthony very, very selective. They're only sort of interested in Muslim Pakistanis, and that was like, to me, that was wrong. I was like, there's a lot of groomers out there what aren't, what are white, what are Jamaican, what are African. There's loads out there. It's not just Muslim. There's a problem.
This is something that got me about Tommy, to be honest with you, but I understand it now, because he was wanting to highlight the grooming gangs.
Yeah.
To me now, I understand there's two separate parts. There's the grooming gangs and the individuals, whereas if Tommy could evolve to highlighting the individuals as well as the gangs, i.e., why don't he highlight the white? Why don't he highlight the white in Telford?
This is the example I put to people. Why does the media and Tommy and the majority of the population nowadays call it grooming gangs, when if it were white, it's a paedophile ring? What's the difference? You know what I mean? A paedophile ring and a grooming gang, same thing.
See, what people don't realise also, that I've recently found out, and I was going to get Mr. Singh on from the SAS, Sikh Awareness Society.
Yeah, I like him. Good bloke he is.
To put the other side across, which they don't only just groom white girls.
No,
they also groom Muslim girls as well. And this is what nobody hears about, because
it doesn't
between
fit the narrative.
them and us, it's different, because if their parents were to find out, being a Muslim girl, they would kick her to the curb, or all badness could happen. Whereas as us white people, if our daughter was to go through that, so I was gonna get. I've been in contact with him for the past couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's the other side that I wanted him to come on and explain that it's the Muslim girls also, because we only hear about the white girls. We don't get to hear that it's Muslim girls they target as well.
And the boys, they won't mention boys either, but boys get groomed as well. The same thing.
And this is the side that Tommy needs to cover. This is the side Tommy needs to cover. He can't just see. It's even getting a bit political for me.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah, it's hard. That's why it's hard to discuss, isn't it? It's hard to discuss without sort of sounding like you're political in some way. You're like, we're not political. We're just trying to say there's more problems than that one. And yes, I'm glad Tommy highlighted that problem. I really am. I'm glad it's highlighted to the world. I'm glad everyone knows about it in Telford, and glad everyone knows about Rotherham. I knew about Telford anyway because I lived here. I didn't need Tommy to tell me. But granted, a lot of people didn't know nothing about it. So I respect the guy for putting his neck out there above the parapet and saying what BNP have tried to say, what Lucy Allen's tried to say, what many other people have tried to say and got nowhere with it. He did. He got somewhere with it. So you can't knock him for that. He did. He did a brilliant job of doing it. He got it all highlighted. But the problem is now is he's coming to the towns to do these documentaries, and he's like, well, these documentaries are bogus. These documentaries aren't really right. You're accusing people who are innocent. You're using people that are grifting. You're using scammers. I don't understand where you're going with this, Tommy. You're just discrediting yourself every time you do a documentary at the moment. You're discrediting yourself. I don't get that. You did.
Yeah, really I'd like him to highlight the individual white guys in Telford that are doing it, and also the Muslim girls that have gone through this in Telford. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I would love to see him do this. You know,
I mean, so would
not
I.
just
So
sticking,
would
not just sticking to the Muslim grooming gangs, because you know, and I know, living and coming from the town, you know, don't just stop there. You know,
No, we
so I'd
don't.
love to see Tommy highlight it as a whole picture
Yeah,
and not just half a picture.
yeah. And given the percentage, for example, you know, he might come along. I don't know what the figures are. I don't really know. So I'm not going to make these out in my head, but I don't know what the figures are. But if you come along and say, look, 80% are white and 10% are Muslim and 6% are Sikh and all that sort of stuff, that's different. Then he's covering the whole lot, but he's not. He's
Yeah.
just sticking to the Muslim. If they're not Muslim, he doesn't want to know. And I'm thinking that's wrong, Tommy. That really is, mate. That's not what's happening in Telford. Yes, it's happened, but it's not just them. It happens for all the fucking all religions, if you like, all races, if you like, is the way I should put it. All colours, they're all doing it, and they're all wrong, and they all should be locked up. Every single one of them, whether you be white, black, pink, green, I don't care. You shouldn't be touching a kid. End of. That's it. You shouldn't be touching a child.
That's where I say to you at the start, like I don't follow him 100% because of this factor.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people can say he's only highlighting the grooming gangs of Muslims, and then all you got to do is look at his past.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that can mar the good work. You know that
That he's done. Yeah.
I will praise him for what he's done, because you know he's one man standing up against, you know, a major problem in the town. You know, so I give him respect and due for that. Yes, definitely 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
But I'd give him 1,000,000% respect if he was to cover the whole picture and not
Yeah, and
just
tell the
half the
actual
picture.
truth. Exactly. Yeah, not just try and switch it or twist it in a way that suits a narrative. Try to just tell the truth. All you got to do is tell the truth. That's it. Because the truth is bad enough. That's what's sickening about it. You haven't got to lie. You haven't got to exaggerate. Just tell the truth. The truth is bad enough. You know what I mean? Just tell the truth. Just read it like you're doing. Just read the report out, and that will tell you everything you need to know. You don't need to listen to Tommy. You ain't got to listen to Lucy Allen. You ain't got to listen to the reports. They're telling you. They don't hide nothing in them reports, especially the Linden report that I've sent you in Facebook, by the way. Especially that one. That one, it totally slates the West Mercia off. It slates the social services off. It really does go to town on them. So that's one of the best reports. I look forward to when you do that one, because that's one of the best reports to read out.
I think I'll get you on when I do that one. I mean, I've only got on one of the reports on this one, you know,
Yeah,
and it's taken me eight videos so far. So
yeah, this
you
is
know, it
part
might
8
take me a
today,
few,
isn't it?
what I might do, I might jump now to the Linden one.
Well, if you only got one more to do, I'd finish number 9 off. If you only got one more to do, it's worth completing that as a package.
No, I've got about, I've probably got about another, to be honest with you, about another 50 videos and make
right,
complete.
okay.
So now you put this to my attention, you know, I
Right,
might
okay.
jump now to the Linden and then come back to this.
Yeah.
I think that'd be wise for me, because that's a more of an up-to-date one.
Yeah, the Linden was done. I think it's March. I think it was March or April this year. It come out. It was done. It's been done for the last 2 years. 2 years they and they sack people. There's people been got rid of. Simple as that. The police and social services. They failing. So when, the problem is that I didn't like about it. They sacked them, but they didn't arrest them. And I think, you know what, that was you should have arrested them people as well. They should have been put up to trial, or used as in some way to show, look, you can't. We're not putting up with this in any police force. Not putting this in any social services. Wherever you are in the country, you will get arrested for your wrongdoings. You're a professional body. You're there to work for the civilians. You're there to work for the public, and you literally failed. So therefore, a sacking isn't good enough for me. I'm like, no, that's not good enough for me. I want some court time here for these people, because they're wrong. They shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have covered up what they did. They shouldn't have turned a blind eye. That's their job. We're supposed to trust these people, and they just turned a blind eye. And you just sacked them. Is that it? I mean, okay, sacking them's good, but they should have been in trial. They should have been in court explaining.
I mean,
why.
there's even reports onto this one. I'm sure it's true. That they left files in a police safe for like 15, 20 years. And then it was only then that it got uncovered. I mean, I'll ask you a question, and just to see what your thoughts are on this. Do you believe there was police corruption, and do you think police officers were paid? Or
knowing how much money the Asian community have in Telford, I could easily believe that they got paid. Yes, I could easily believe that there was.
Do you reckon there's actual factual evidence somewhere that
I don't think.
might suggest that, or
I think you're only going to get factual evidence through testimonies. You're not going to get anything factual, because I don't think the police, whoever was getting bribed, whoever was taking money, whoever it was, and I think clearly they were, but whoever it was, there's no way they're going to leave the cells open. It was done completely privately. It was done, so coercively, sort of under the covers. It was never going to be. There's never going to be a video footage of £1,000, £10,000, £50,000 being posted to some guy or even given to some police officer. That's never going to happen. It really ain't. So it's just testimonies we have, and sadly, the testimonies we have at the moment are from people that can't be trusted. If it was testimonies from pure, true, never told a lie in their life, never been arrested before, nothing like that whatsoever, then you could go, that's more credible. That's a lot more credible now. But we've never had that yet. We've only had it from people who are not credible. And it's like, well, you're not credible. You can't be used in the court as a witness, because the court will say you're not a credible witness. Well, if you're not a credible witness, then why am I listening to you? Why? It doesn't matter what you say or comes out of your mouth. You're not credible. I'd love to listen to. I'd love to believe it, but I can't. I can't do that because of the society's already shown that you're not credible, and yourself, you've already shown you're not credible. So it's hard to believe these so-called survivors, what are coming out all of a sudden out of the woodwork, what didn't get any money from the compensation because they got found out that they weren't survivors. They got found out they were lying. It's the same as 9/11. Remember when 9/11 happened years ago?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people come forward and said, my husband was in there, and got paid out. And the husband wasn't there. It wasn't even married. So there's a lot of people do come out. They do come out for lies, for money. It's the root of all evil, isn't it? You will lie for money. And a lot of people are doing that, I see, in Telford at the moment, especially with these documentaries that are coming out. They're just lies. I'm like, it's lies.
See, that's the hard thing in all of this, because, some witnesses, they might have had a bit of a dodgy past, but, they might well be telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I'll play devil's advocate.
Yeah, I mean, if some witness,
there was a female, and she had spoken to 20 men on messages, say, for argument's sake.
Yeah.
I'm only playing devil's advocate, just she's been in communication with 20 men, and then she claims that she was raped by Muslim gang perpetrators.
Yeah.
And they submit evidence that she's been in contact with 20 odd men.
Yeah.
And I'll just chuck an age out there. Say she's 14.
Yeah.
And she's been talking to all these men, and these perpetrators use that as a form of defense to discredit the girl. How? I mean, she could well be telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because of that reason that she's been in communication with 20 odd men, that victim will then, the survivor, I'll say.
Discredited. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, that's the hardship in all this.
Yeah.
Figuring what's true and what's not.
When you got messages going between, say that same girl, 14-year-old, so for example, and they got messages from that girl going to Muslim, Asian men, whatever you want to call it, groomers, and she's trying to get money out of them. She's trying to get watches and jewelry and clothes, and she's actually trying to extort money out of these so-called abusers. And you think, well, okay, so what survivor who was abused would actually add 50 Asian men to their Facebook account? Who would do that? Right? This isn't about like what's right and wrong. This is a psychological report. Easily, any psychologist will be able to go, a survivor don't do that. A survivor would not ever. A survivor probably wouldn't be on Facebook. A real survivor would want to be kept completely in the dark and have a horrible life. Bless her. She'll have a horrible life, but she won't.
So this is my exact thoughts. What you just said. If I was a survivor, I'd be silent.
Exactly.
I'd keep it to myself. I wouldn't be forward coming with the information about what's happened.
Yeah. If you just listen to some of the graphic details and the way they talk, you think, you know what? I've been around survivors. That's not how they do it. That really ain't. I don't believe you because of how you're telling the story. You're telling it with a laugh and a giggle on your face, for one. I don't know a survivor that does that. I know most survivors I know And I only know three, to be honest. That's like most. I only know three. But they will never just come out publicly and say it. You have to drag it out of them. You have to literally
and
drag it out.
and probably even 50 years down the line, and they still wouldn't,
No.
be
Yeah.
forthcoming, with that information because
Yeah.
of what they had gone through. I mean, see, that could be one sign, but then could there be a survivor that would be free willing to come out like that? I don't know.
There might well be. There might well be a survivor that's willing to come out and say what's happened and say to it. But I just don't think the way it's been portrayed on the YouTubes or even on the documentaries and stuff like that of how they come out and just tell it as it is true. I just don't. I think, well, not from my experience of that lot. I don't see that at all. And everyone I ask around, I have family what's in social services, and I ask, I go, is that no way, no way would they say that. That's what social services are saying. And no way. I've been around 100 victims. Trust me, they don't come out with it like that whatsoever. And
to be honest with you, I wouldn't like to be in a position of authority to make that choice or decision.
No, nor would I. Nor would I. I wouldn't like to be the person who decides whether that woman's telling the truth or not. I would not like to be that person at all.
But like you say, like you say, in my book where I read from, survivors wouldn't even tell their story for 50 years of their life. They take it to the grave with them. I mean, I haven't experienced or been around anybody as such directly, to be able to say for definite. But I know for sure, a lot of them would take their stories of what happened to the grave with them, as opposed to, coming that forward, and being happy to tell the story. I mean, I might be wrong. 10 years time, I might have to chew me words, but the way that I see it, survivors normally keep all of that to themselves.
Yeah. I mean, since the Savile case, there's been an open fund, if you like. It's called now? Historical Child Abuse case, and you get some money for it. I forgot what it's called now. I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to use here. Like a compensation payout, if you like. And that's £22,000. And you don't need evidence for this, believe it or not. You don't actually need evidence for it. You just need to claim and show, hopefully, that you was in involvement some way, and then you'll get the payout for it. Now, a lot of these girls at the moment what are coming forward, they haven't had no payout. And I do sit there thinking, is that why you're coming forward now with a GoFundMe? Is that why you're using Tommy? Is it because you had no payout? Because it was NFA, 18 times NFA. How many more NFAs do you want? And you didn't get a payout. So is this the reason what I call grifting, but is this the reason you got a GoFundMe on the go now, and you're on stage and you're shouting off and you're telling it as if it's like it happened to you yesterday sort of thing, and you're not even upset about it, or it's just really weird the way they come across and do it all.
See, when I've done the interview with Brian Cockrell, he knows I'm a genuine person, and I look at him now as like a brother and not just as a friend. And when I've done the podcast with him, about a week later, I had his wife on, and I fact checked everything. She sent me loads of documentations as in relation to what we were going to talk about. So I knew everything was factually correct, was what she was wanting to talk to me, and she chose me because she felt I'm unbiased. I'm not in it for the clicks, the looks, the views, the subs. I've got a 5 to 10 year plan for my channel, so I'm not in it for that. I'm in it purely for getting the message out there and bringing the awareness. And she chose to come on my channel and open up for the very first time what she went through. And like I say, she even allowed me to put the documentation on a separate video, just so what she was saying was fully backed up. And I wouldn't like somebody to come on and 6 months down the line somebody proved that it was lies, which I never doubted her. I never doubted her for a moment. And for her to be confident in myself, you know, to get her story out there. I mean, that's also in one of my videos. It's Emma Cockrell's story.
Right.
And what drew me more after the interview was the courage that she had to say what she wanted to say, and to think that the two perpetrators that done the stuff, you'd have to look at the video,
Right.
but to think the two perpetrators are still on YouTube mocking her, you know,
Right.
day in day out to what they done to her in the past.
Yeah.
Um,
They got off
you
with
know,
it then, basically. They got off with it.
um, it was NFA, but it was all proved, but it was NFA'd.
On technicalities or something stupid like that. Yeah, usually is.
I mean, it's a harrowing story. I mean, she's still going through it, and where she found the courage, you know, to come out and to speak about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my first ever direct sort of contact with somebody that had been through like that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
I still couldn't take it all in today, you know.
Yeah.
And it was something I needed to come away from YouTube for a week, you know.
Yeah.
You
Just to,
know,
yeah, I know exactly what you mean there.
I had to if I had to refresh my mind, you know, for a week, then God knows what
What
she
she's
went
going
through
through.
as a
Yeah.
survivor.
Yeah. No, I get that.
But then
Get
to
that
know
totally.
that while I was doing the live with her, I'm glad I had some good moderators. The person actually thought it would be clever for him to put a comment in the chat section, knowing full well.
Gaslight or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't read the comments when I'm doing the interviews and stuff. I mean, I leave
Right.
that to me mods to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for her to see that comment, you know, my mods acted quickly, you know, to block that person, and you know, to think that they still think that they can have that sort of control
Yeah.
over the person. I mean, if her husband was 10 years younger and what he was,
Yeah. You just
you
sorted it
know,
out. I know what you mean. Yeah.
he wouldn't, he
Yeah.
simply wouldn't be breathing, you know.
Yeah.
And he's only taking the advantage there because Brian recently had a major operation on his spine.
Yeah. So taking advantage of it, of course, they are typical troll gaslighting.
You know, so I done a bit of my own investigating, and you know, I got a couple of people that I know to, you know, keep him occupied.
Yeah. I got
So, you know, in that sort of instance, the perpetrator could still be able to get the access to bring back the triggers.
Yeah.
That's the other thing why I spoke to Emma behind the scenes before, because I didn't want anything to trigger her, you know.
Yeah.
She came to me, I didn't go to her. You know, so I was reluctant, to be honest with you, because of it triggering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I know what you mean. There's a few people I've had to say no to on my channel because I know it'll just bring back moments for them. They don't really want to go back through. You know, just like go to the police. Don't use YouTube. Go to the police. Please go and get counselling. Please go to the right people. Here's the Holy Project, for example. Go to these people. Don't come to me because I can't. I just can't. I won't. I'll be sick. I'll be angry. I'll be fucking fuming. I want to find out who these people are.
Well, that's what I was like doing the interview with her, because I keep this, you know, close to my heart, and I couldn't promise myself if. See, I've always wanted to spend a day with the hunters, paedophile hunters.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to go on the sting. And this is a true story. This I've got the video up on my channel of the perpetrator, and what happened was I was with a female and we split up. And then she started dating this certain individual called Ryan. It was from Hills Lane, Hills Lane Drive.
Right.
The video's up on my channel, I think, unless I took it down today. But his name was Ryan Hatton.
Right.
Now, she got with this Ryan Hatton. Now, the paedophile group that I wanted to go on a sting with realised that my ex was going out with that guy.
Okay, all right. Got you.
And they basically they didn't give me any reason or anything, didn't explain.
Yeah.
They just cut me off,
Okay.
and that was the thing I was wanting to go on, but because they realised my ex was with him,
Yeah, you were too
the
invested.
Ryan Hatton.
Yeah. Too invested.
I phoned my ex and I said, look, I said, I'm not being horrible, right? I said, he's a fucking,
He's a wrong one.
NONCE.
Mm-hmm.
So she thought, oh no, you're lying. I said, mark my words, right? I said, he ain't going to be around in 7 days.
Yeah.
So she thought I was just being nasty, and how you are when you split up with people.
Yeah, spiteful type thing. Yeah.
And when she realised the guy she was with had done it twice before with real people, real children, he got caught the third time, and he's doing a 17-year sentence now.
17-year, great news. That's more like it.
Now I phoned her on the afternoon. I said, he ain't coming back out of that courtroom. I said, and it was only then that she opened her eyes and said, well, you weren't lying, was you? I said, no. I said, I wouldn't lie about something like that. I'm not the average person.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that I found the video of the sting, and I whacked it up on my YouTube for awareness. I mean, because he's from Telford.
Yeah.
I used to live on Sutton Hill myself back in the day. I mean, and Hills Lane was just a stone throw.
My ex-wife was from Sutton Hill, Shakespeare Way. She used to live. Yeah. In Sutton Hill, the posh end, as they call it.
Posh end of Sutton Hill. Yeah, and I mean, I put that sting up, and then there was another sting but today, what I've done, I've been turned down for monetization twice because I've had reused content.
Oh, right, okay.
So what I've slowly done, I've started putting up a load of shorts, to get the views. I've been getting like 9K views, 6K views, 11K views. So
yeah,
that will sacrifice for the amount of videos I've got to delete.
Yeah.
Unless it's showing me face, or it's an interview I've done with somebody, or it's my own voice that's reviewing over stuff. And I know I deleted about 10 videos. I'm not sure if the Ryan Hatton one was in amongst
that.
But then I sat back.
YouTube's funny when it comes to monetization. I've not looked into. I've never wanted to monetize my channel, to be honest. I've only just cracked over 1,000 subs or something not so long back, but it's never been in. I've never been in it for monetization. I've never been in it for subs. Same as you. I'm not really in it for the subs and subscribers and all that sort of stuff. Likes. I'm not really bothered. I just want it out there. So at least in 20 years to come, 10 years to come, even 6 weeks to come, tomorrow, somebody somewhere can type in the search bar about something, and my video might come up and go, there you go. Here's a video I can watch about something. That's all it is, really. And it's just, I always put out truth. There's never any lies. There's always evidence with it. There's never any me just saying something. It's always, I've got evidence to back everything I say up. Otherwise, I won't say it. Many times I've been caught out by doing that. People have said to me, well, you said yesterday this. And I'm like, yeah, I did. It's true. But where's the evidence? And I went, okay, give me 2 seconds, and click. There you go. There's the evidence. Oh, right. Okay, then. But so it's always been that way.
Afternoon, Cindy Collector. Mod in the house. Yeah, I mean, it was only the other day I was sat down thinking, if I can monetize my channel, but then I might not get, if I was monetized, what my fear is, I won't be able to get them sort of guests on that, I've been able to get on at the moment, because they know that I'm not about the looks, the views or anything like that.
So if you monetize it, right, and then all of a sudden you do a stream the following week, you could lose it all then because of that one stream that you did with somebody, and it's like, wow, the whole of YouTube getting a bit anal because of one stream you killed the whole channel, or you demonetized the whole channel because of that. It's ridiculous.
Or not even that factor. It's the case that some people might draw into me because they know I'm genuine, and they know that I've got the message to put out there. And some people will look at that and draw into me, and then the second that I decide to monetize, they might look at it a different aspect, but I'd always be the same person. I'd always be still genuine. You know, so maybe it's for the better if I don't. You know, maybe
But
that's what
I've always found that is it Buy Me a Coffee or whatever they call it or something. I think it's something
buy
like
me a
that.
coffee.
That's probably one of the best ones to use, to be honest with you, because YouTube can't stop that. They can't do
I'll
nothing about
change mine to buy me a kebab.
that. Fair play to you. Fair play.
You know, but yeah, that was something somebody showed me, and I thought, I might as well just open that. And you know, I've seen a load of channels on YouTube. They just beg. Oh, I
Yep.
want to buy a camper van. Give me your
Yeah.
money. Give me
Yeah.
your money. You know,
Yeah.
and you think, I want a studio, mate. Go and get a effing
Just
job.
get a job. Yeah, I can get a
Pay
job
for it
and do
out
it
of your
yourself.
own pocket.
Exactly.
Don't
Exactly.
expect your subs
My
to
same
fucking pay
thoughts.
for stuff.
If you want them studio equipment and you want the nice 4K cameras and all that sort of stuff, don't ask your viewers for it. Go and get a job and pay for it yourself. Simple as that.
I mean, they're
Unless
the
you're already
ungenuine
monetized.
channels. To me, they're
Yeah.
the ungenuine channels. I mean, they thrive off drama. You know,
Yeah.
somebody has an argument
Clickbait.
on YouTube, and they're there for the views. They get like 30,000 views, and I'll be sat
Yeah.
there thinking, I'd rather build my channel over 10 years. If in 10 years' time I can have 5,000 subs, but
You'll be happy with that.
genuine
Yeah.
5,000
Genuine
subs that
subs.
enjoy my
Yeah.
content,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm about. These
Well, you
others,
know,
they're
a lot
like,
of people buy subs, don't they? A lot of them buy subs, shockingly. They buy them. I'm like, why would you? That's like lying to yourself. You know what I mean? Why would you
well, the
buy
thing
subs?
is, they can buy the subs, but that's not a human sat behind watching that video.
Exactly.
So
They
they're
got
not, so
50,000
they're not
subs,
getting
only
the
two
message
people
out.
watching.
They're getting the message out to bloody bots.
Yeah, exactly. You got 50,000 subscribers, only 6 people watching the whole stream. That don't make sense. It's because you know they bought them. They bought them subs. Definitely. It's
I
crazy.
mean, I'd
To buy
rather grow
subs
my
is
channel
mental.
over 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, I've been going for 3 years now, so it's took me over 3 years to get to 1,000 because I've never pushed it. I never pushed anyone. I don't say to people, please subscribe and all this sort of stuff. I don't bother with any of that. I just do my video, put it out. If they like it, they'll subscribe. If they don't, they don't. That's it.
I mean, I
I don't really.
started this one in June, I think.
Yeah.
You know, but because I had a history like from the back end of December and all the arguing, and I mean, the amount of channels I had to go on and give public apologies and then wait for them to accept the apology. I mean, it was, you know, I wish I'd never ever got involved with this one individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but since June, I mean, I've just gone with the flow, decided I'm going to stick on my own path. I've seen the cliche in the window that nobody's advertising these grooming gangs in Telford, or nobody wanted to take the chance, or they didn't want to get their face out there and put their face behind, you know, the cause. You know, so that's what I decided to do, you know, and you know, here I am, close to December. I've got a good followers of my channel. You know, they come and view the stuff they want to view. It's there for them to view it at any time they want. There's some other channels, you know, they just want 1,000 people to come on their lives and, you know,
argue. Yeah.
What's the
And just
point?
argue and kick off. What's the point of that?
Yeah, what's the point? They're not sending out a
Exactly.
message, and you know, their channels have got a shelf life, you know, whereas mine, you know, mine will go on for 10 years or maybe beyond, you know.
Yeah. Well,
You
go
know,
on as
because of
long
the
as you want
message
it to go on,
that
won't
I
it?
want to
Simple as
send out. But I'd definitely love to
yeah, we'll have to set up a stream and have a good discussion about stuff without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You know, because what you got there about Holly, I mean, I don't know anything about that now. You know, I'm going to have to do some research over the next like couple of weeks. But you know, there's a man stood there that knows exactly what he's talking about, and this is what my channel is all about.
Yeah, Holly Archer, that was her name. Holly Archer.
Holly Archer, that was it. Yeah, because she done that book, and I read that book.
Good book. Good book.
I'm subscribed to her on Facebook as well.
Yeah, well, she's in charge of the Holly Project now. Whether she's still running it or not, or whether it's been passed on to other people, I'm not quite sure. But she's the one who started it all off. She was the main drive behind it all. So fair play to her. She's done a good job, to be honest with you. She's left, as you know, there's people now can contact. There's a phone number, there's an address, there's an email. You can go and visit them, knock on the door. Everything's confidential. It's probably the best place to go. I'd advise anyone who's a survivor or even a victim, was of a survivor. It hasn't got to be a survivor themselves. Just if they know a survivor and the survivor hasn't got the confidence to come forward, go and see the Holly Project. They'll tell you how to advise the survivor. You know, there'll even be you can be the mediocre then between if you need to be. But you've got Holly Project behind you. And if you've got someone like that behind you, you know you're in the right way. You know you're going the right road. But yeah, great. I'm gonna have to get off. Getting late, but
yeah.
I'll let you carry on with your 8. I'll probably watch that later.
Well, I'm gonna jump off now as well.
Soon.
I mean,
we've made on Facebook.
I've got some research. I've got some research to do now. I'm gonna look into that Holly now. Over the next couple of hours, I'm gonna, have a good look through their Facebook page, and I'm definitely gonna keep in contact with you. I definitely want to do two, maybe more dedicated. To the knowledge that you've got there, putting out for the Holly Project.
Holly Project as well on the Shropshire Star newspaper. Type in Holly Project, and you'll get all the news reports of where who's funding them and how well they're doing. Because every sort of year they do publish something about Holly Report in the Shropshire Star. So if you go on the website Shropshire Star, just type in Holly Project. All the news reports will come up then with the Holly Project as well. So yeah, good. All right, then, Steve. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, definitely keep in contact. I mean, because
definitely. Yeah, since I found your channel last
over the next week, give me a week to have a look through and do some sort of research, and maybe next week we can do a whole show dedicated purely.
Just hit me up on Facebook
about this Holly Project, because it needs to get out there. If I didn't know about it, just think how many others don't know. That's there. To help the survivors.
Yeah, I agree. No problem at all. Hit me up on Facebook, mate. We'll do that. No issues whatsoever. It's been nice to meet you today. Been nice to meet
you too, Danny. Thank you very much. Cheers,
buddy. See you soon. Thanks, mate. Thanks for all the chat as well, whoever's there. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. There we go, people. I mean, that's interesting. I've got some research to get on and do now, because this is exactly what my channel is about. And I've got to delete a video that's on my channel because that organisation is not around anymore, and I want to do some research into the Holly Project now. It sounds like it's the best organisation in the Telford area, that's there purely to help survivors, and they can get put into the right organisations from there, unless they have it all in house, to help survivors of child sexual exploitation in Telford. I was going to continue reading the report, but I've got a little bit of research to do now into the Holly Project. Cheers, Danny, for coming on. I'm glad that you come up in the comments, and I definitely want to get you on to do at least a couple of dedicated lives, about the Holly Project. I'm going to do a little bit of research over the next couple of hours, I think, to look into this Holly Project myself. And also, there's a new report Danny's pointed me in the direction to, which is an up-to-date version of the report that I've been reading out, to do with the child sexual exploitation in Telford, the report findings. So I've got a bit of homework, you can say, for me to get on and do now. But hopefully over the next couple of days, I'm going to start exactly what I was doing with this report, but reading out the Linden report, because it's an up-to-date version of the report that came out 2 years ago, that I've been slowly doing recent videos on, to highlight the awareness of exactly what's been going on and what recommendations can be made. And it'd be nice to see that these organisations, the police, the council, the doctors, the hospitals, are come together to share the information about child sexual exploitation, or those that are vulnerable, it'd be nice to see what they've learned, from these findings over the past 40 years in the Telford area. So I've got some homework, to get on and do now, and hopefully I'll get Danny back on very, very, very soon, so we can do a complete show about the Holly Project, which is an organisation to help support people, young ladies, or even adults that have been through that, to make their life that little bit less stressful, and to help them. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you for all those that have tuned in, and until the next one, take it easy, guys.